In many places, depopulation is an issue. How do you repopulate is you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm saying this on a spot. I heard someone say it once and I never like tried to do math about it, but I heard someone say on a TED talk or something like that that you need to have 3 children in order to increase the population. Like if you just have one or two, it doesn't work. So a mother and father have one child, that decreases. If you went from 2 to 1, or if you go from 2 to 2, right? A mother and father have 2 children, that's just like lateral. So in order to increase the population, you have to have 3 or more. Nobody wants to have 3 or more children now because there's no real incentive for that, right? Um, Everybody's working, and also everybody's trying to like have a better lifestyle, and so they'd rather have one child and provide them lifestyle, like a good lifestyle, good in quotes, versus having 6 children and feel like they're struggling or whatever. That's the notions that people have in their mind around children. I'm not saying these things are correct. I'm saying this is what it is. People feel like if they have 5 or 10 children, that they're not going to be able to float economically. They're going to be poor forever or whatever. They're going to struggle financially. But if they have one child or children, then they'll be able to put their best into their children for their children to thrive, to have the best chance at, a comfortable life, and so on and so forth. So it's very much a mentality thing. It's very much work culture thing and stuff like that. And yeah, all that's going to have to change in order for us to like turn around. And it's hard because I'm sure I've said this before. I don't know if I said it on a podcast or I don't know if maybe I just was talking to my husband about it or people that in person. But I remember that in China, China had a 1-child policy and now they've increased it to 2 children because they decreased their population a little bit too effectively. And so they increased to 2, but when I would poll my students about like whether they wanted to have children or not, or whether they thought they'd only like to have 1 or 2, most of them wanted to have 0 children or 1 child. Most of them didn't even want to have 2. It's like the whole 1-child policy, propaganda, like it just worked a little too well. So, yeah, and that's not good for society, to be biblical. And I don't know, Christians may disagree with me on this. I feel like many Christians probably would disagree with me on this because this is something little preached or infrequently touched upon in church. I don't know if I've ever heard this touched upon in church, to be honest. And so it's controversial and maybe a lot of people would agree. But I seem to think, the Bible says, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Okay, we often talk about the subdue part, have dominion and everything. We talk about be fruitful and multiply. Everybody wants to have a kid, at least one. So you can convince most of the world to have one kid. And you can also, convince them about sort of having dominion over the earth, this concept of humanity ruling over the earth or something like that. But this concept of filling the earth, like multiplication, right? That is not of children, by the way, because people are always trying to multiply their finances and multiply multiply other stuff, but multiplication of children, okay, of humanity, that part is not that, encouraged and sort of taught upon in church. But from a Christian perspective, I do believe that to the extent that the Lord allows, because he's the one who's giving the children. And sometimes people are not able to have even one, or sometimes people only have one or have 2. That's his sovereign, prerogative, or, that's within his sovereign ability to do for us or not do for us. So if I can only have one, then that's because that was God. That was his will for me personally. But generally speaking, his plan for us all is to multiply and fill the earth. So it's to increase. And so I think a lot of one of the problems of society and even within Christendom is that we are fearful about having children. We've allowed sort of cultural conversations around, again, I don't know, mostly like financial stuff, lifestyle, even health, we've allowed it to like bring fear into us about having a lot of children. I don't think it's right, honestly. I think we need to start taking better care of ourselves, because I do also think we're not as healthy as we were before. So some of those health fears are legitimate. But we need to start taking better care of ourselves. But we need to embrace, I think we ought to, let me say, we ought to embrace, having many children.